You know, we can sit as people in the congregation. We don't know the price that the people pay every day for the members of this church. And I've been a beneficiary. I won't get emotional. But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I had prepared a different sermon, but when you sent me the message, I had to change my sermon because we've been looking at Revelations 5:10 and talking about what it means to be priests and kings and what to rule over what God has called us to do in this land. This land is groaning. How many of you have heard the groans of the land? We've talked about it for years, but I think this is probably the toughest time since probably the 90s. And I'm old enough to remember the 90s. The land is groaning and it's waiting for priests and kings to rise up and do what we've been called to do in the kingdom. So I just want to start off with a few verses about what we are called to do in the kingdom of God. So let's look at 1 Peter 2:9-10, the Message translation. I'll just start by reading it. But you're the ones chosen by God, chosen for the high calling of priestly work, chosen to be a holy people, God's instruments, to do his work and speak out for him, to tell the others of the night and day difference he made for you, from nothing to something, from rejected to accepted. Who has that story? So many of us have that story, but after today, hopefully more of us will have that story. So it's Palm Sunday, and as I reflected on the power of the sermon topic, I look back to see what it means to be a king and priest, using Palm Sunday as a way to remind ourselves of what Palm Sunday really is. As we drove in today, we saw a church outside with palms and the demonstration of Palm Sunday. But let's look back at Palm Sunday, because we who have been in the church for a long time might forget the story. Matthew 21, 1-11. So Jesus comes to Jerusalem as king, okay? So I'll just read and hopefully project on the screen. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say to them, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what they had spoken through the prophet. "Say to the daughter Zion, 'See, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey and a colt and the foal of a donkey.'" The disciples went and did as Jesus had said to them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit. Now a very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds then went ahead of him, and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heavens." And when Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" And the crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Now we have heard this story. We've carried palms. We've made palms into crosses. And sometimes we forget how that story ties to living as priests and kings. And when I was reflecting on this, God gave me an acronym, which is what I'm going to build my sermon on. And the acronym is VIEW. VIEW. So ask your neighbor, what's in view? What's in view? What's in view? Don't forget that view. I like acronyms because we're tired. Some of us are hungry. We're thinking about what we're going to eat when we get home. So let's remember view, right? What's in view? What's in view? We use that term a lot, view. What do you see? What do you see? What's in view? So V stands for vision. Now, you can't be a king and priest if you don't have a vision. Now, many of us are jaded. We're tired. We started January. We said, this is what I'm going to achieve this year. February has come. March is almost over. And we're like, God, I'm supposed to be a priest and king. I'm supposed to be reigning. I'm supposed to be taking dominion. Tell your neighbor, don't be tired. It's only March. Don't be tired. Don't be tired. Don't worry about what's happening around you. Don't be tired. See, Jesus had a very clear view when he was entering Jerusalem. He had a clear view because it had been foretold that he had to fulfill that promise in the Old Testament, that he had to come into Jerusalem riding on a donkey. I loved what Sister Nkoyo did up here. She prophesied and said, this baby will be Deborah. This baby will be an Esther. Prophecies have been made about you. Prophecies have been made about you. God has a plan for you. But the question is, what is your vision for your life? Many times, we have a very small vision. When I talk to young people, and they mentioned I was the founder of Leap Africa, so I've been talking to young people for a while. I'd ask young people, what's your dream? They'll say to have a nice car, a nice house, a nice wife, and some children, and a good job. I'll say, how much in the bank? They'll say 5 million naira. I'll say, that dream is too small. Why is it too small? Because it's focused on you. There is no dream that's focused on you that God can use. If you're a king and priest, your dream has to be focused on others. Tell your neighbor, is your dream focused on others? That vision has to be focused on others. I talked about Pastor Tony and Sister Nkoyo. Sister Nkoyo has a dream that's focused on others. I hope we all know the name. Bethesda. And I have a new vision for Bethesda even. My daughter and I were driving home from church the other day. The number of children who surrounded our car, we decided we'll try and feed some children that day. It was a stampede. And I thought, Bethesda has to open more schools for these street children. It's not enough to give them food. How can we be here and the numbers of children have gone on from 20 who come around your car to just bring food and you'll see how many. There were marks on our car by the time we got home. And I thought, it's not enough to feed these children. They need to be clothed. They need to have a place to sleep. My vision for Bethesda is bigger than what we even have today. And there are going to be people who fund that vision. Sister Nkoyo, there are people who fund that vision. So the question is, what is your vision? And you can't have somebody else's vision. That's the other thing I've noticed. I work with young people and I work with entrepreneurs. And I meet a lot of entrepreneurs and I say, what is your vision? They say, well, I want to go into oil and gas. Why? Well, 2 of my friends are into oil and gas and they're hammering. That's why you want to go into oil and gas? Or ICT, I hear call centers are the big thing. Or women, fashion. I want to enter fashion. Why? Well, I like clothes. No. Remember what I told you? It's to solve a problem for who? Others. Ask yourself, are you follow? Ask your neighbor, are you a follow? Are you a copycat? Or are you the original? I want to be the original. Everyone here is an original. That's why they say our palms are what? Are different. Nobody has the same fingerprints. You have to be an original. God has to give you your own vision. And that vision has to be what? In the scripture. You have to be able to back it up with scripture. You have to have mentors in your lives and accountability partners who see that in you. You might not see it in yourself. And guess what? It might not look very popular. When God called us into agriculture, my husband and I, about 16 years ago, people said, agriculture, 2 Harvard MBAs, going into farming. In fact, a relative said to one of us, HBS MBA selling pepper. Now, wow. The same people have called me and said, you're the Joseph of your generation. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of farming. God has called you. So if you're listening to people, you'll be led astray. Don't plant your vision on what people think is popular. What God has called you to do might seem like laborer's work, might be below you in the mind of other people. Do you understand? You should be sitting in an office with AC. I remember the first day my husband came into the factory, he was still wearing his corporate wear, and he wanted a place to hang up his suits. By the time he had been there for 2 weeks, he was wearing traditional. Right? I lost my shoe once in mile 12. I got wet, my hair was wet, I lost the shoe I came with. How many of you understand what it means? To walk in purpose, to work as a priest means you have to have what? A vision. And that vision is unique to you. Now, people ask me all the time, how can I find my vision? The first step is to ask yourself, what gives you joy? What comes naturally to you that people have observed in you? Or what makes you angry? For all the things I've started, it wasn't joy, it was anger. Right? I was angry that young people were considered leaders of tomorrow. The people who told us we're leaders of tomorrow told us in their 20s, in their 30s, in our 40s, 50s, and they're still there telling us you're leaders of tomorrow. And I wondered, what does tomorrow hold when the life expectancy is 57 in this country? If we wait till we're in our 50s, we'll be dead. So I decided to start an organization to teach young people they could be leaders of today and tomorrow. Do you understand? That was what LEAP was focused on. It was anger. I thought they've told us a lie and we have to retrace our steps. And what got me into food and agriculture? Hunger. That we are naturally endowed for agricultural excellence. How many of you have things growing up in your backyard you didn't plant? Sometimes I'll see a pawpaw tree. I'm like, who planted this pawpaw tree? Things fall on the ground and grow in our country. And yet we're importing food. And yet food is unaffordable for the average person. 84% of Nigerians cannot afford a healthy diet. 1 out of 3 Nigerian children is stunted. Doesn't that make you angry? When we can feed ourselves and the world? And do you know why we're hungry? A lot of bad policies, because some of you have refused to step into government when God has called you. Some of us are letting other people enter those positions when God has called us to be in those positions. So what is your vision? What is your vision for Nigeria? What's your vision for successful business? What's your vision for a successful life? So that's V, vision. You have to have a vision. Number 2, view, remember, is I. And I loved when my sister prayed this morning. I said she has already preached my sermon. I is for following instructions, obedience. She talked about it. She talked about the donkey in her prayer, for those who were listening. Now, imagine that kings and priests have to be obedient to what God has said. So let's say God has given you the vision. Are you going to be obedient to that vision? He asked 2 people to go and get a donkey, right? They were obedient. They followed his instruction. Did his instruction make sense? Was there an address? Go and ask for a colt. From whose house? There was the house specified. Go to the village, and when you get there, you will find a family that has a colt and a donkey. Ask them for it. If you are the one being sent on that errand, what will you say? Please, I need a name. I don't want to look stupid. GPS location, phone number, something. And then you're asking me to ask them for something with nothing in return, no money. You're not giving me money. You're just saying, go and ask. How many of you will say, no, that errand doesn't sound right? How many of you have God sent on an errand that you said it doesn't sound right? It doesn't sound right. You have not told me the full thing. I can't go. Some of us are afraid and too fearful. Or we need to see the full picture before we start going. That is the biggest problem holding priests and kings back in Nigeria and in the world. I talk to people of God. They say, Ndidi, why do you start all these organizations? Because I don't have any, I'm not afraid. Because I have trust in who? I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. I don't have the full picture, but he who has sent me has gone ahead. You know, I'll give you a practical example. Some people say, God has called me to have children. I'm married. God has called me to have children. And then I say, okay, what are the ways that God can use for you to have children? You can give birth to them by carrying them in your tummy. 1, you can adopt. 2, you can actually have spiritual children serving the congregation. Do you understand? You can have somebody else's a relative who's passed on, and you can take their children and raise them. Is there one way to have children? But I talk to people in the church, and they say, no, there's only one way. I'm like, are you kidding me? You are limiting God. And those who have decided, you know what, I can adopt or I can use any of the other 4 methods, the minute they do that, they have their own biological children. This has happened to 4 people I know. So why are you limiting God? Why is there the only one way? And we can go through the path. Oh, I won't start a business until I have at least 10 million in the bank. I won't leave my job until I have 5 investors who have stood by me. I will not. It's a friend. I've told her, please, 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 stop calling me. Because your answer to everything God lays in my heart that I should tell you is, oh, I have children to feed. I have school fees to pay. I said, you trust God, but you keep on saying that. You're holding on to a clutch. You're holding on to what? A clutch. And God cannot bless you and use you if you're holding tightly to what you know. Release it and let Him show you what He has in store for you. Release it. Release it. It's a very, very important principle. Ask your neighbor, release it. Follow Him. Obedience means you don't know where He's sending you. But if He's sending you, and you know He's the one sending you, He will equip you. He will provide for you, and He will sustain you. You know, with the businesses we've started, every time we wanted to give up, and we wanted to give up many times, and my sister, who is in the audience, can tell you, will say, God, this is your business. Is it not your business? Come and fight for us. Come and show yourself faithful. You sent us. Did we send ourselves? Come and honor yourself. So I is what? Instruction and obedience. Now, some of you, God is asking you to forgive. And I can't talk about obedience without talking about forgiveness. God is asking you to forgive. And every time I come on this podium, God tells me, you have to tell the people of God they have to forgive other people. Tell your neighbor, forgive other people. Forgive other people. You know, there was a story. When we first moved to Lagos, we lived in VGC. And we used to contribute money for our gate man's salary. And unfortunately, one of our neighbors was collecting but not remitting to the gate man. So I stopped talking to them. I was angry. You're holding back money for the gate man. So one day I came to this church and God said to me, you have to go and ask them for forgiveness for keeping malice. And they came to this church. And I went and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for keeping malice. I'm sorry for being angry and not talking to you. And it was a release, and God blessed me. Who do you need to ask for forgiveness today? Obedience. Don't say that you didn't hear from God. You've heard from God. Ndidi has been sent by God to tell you there's somebody who you're angry at. They've done something to you. You're justified in some way, but it's not your issue. It's God's issue. Ask them for forgiveness. Because by keeping malice, not picking their calls, ignoring them, giving them the cold shoulder, what have you done? You've blocked your blessing and you've been disobedient. So I is what? Instructions. Follow the instructions. Now what is the next E? E is for excellence. God cannot use you if you're not excellent. Kings and priests have to be excellent. What does it mean to be excellent? What does it mean to be excellent? To be excellent means you're bringing your A game every time. You're bringing your A game. Tell your neighbor, are you bringing your A game? We're not just talking about Sunday when you guys look so good, dress up, put on your makeup, wear your best outfits. We're talking about in your work, in the calling that He's given you, in what He's entrusted to you. Are you excellent? You know the amazing thing? Your excellence is your cover. Your integrity is your cover. They put a cloak on the donkey. They put cloaks on the ground. That was the cover, right? They used it to cover themselves. They put it on the ground to worship the master. Now, what I have used in my life as a priest and king is integrity and excellence. So when they look for faults, they won't find any. When they try to bring you down, they can't have any, they have nothing to hold. Why? Because you've brought your best to everything. Now, who was excellent in the Bible? Who was described as excellent? Who was described? Daniel. What was excellent about Daniel? Let's look at Proverbs. Let's look at a couple of passages about excellence. For Daniel, Daniel 6:3. Can we put up Daniel 6:3? Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials because he had an excellent spirit. He had what? An excellent spirit, that distinguished him. Does your excellent spirit distinguish you? Are you on time? Are you consistent? Can people trust you? God cannot elevate you to be a priest and king if he can't trust you with small things. He can't trust you with small things. How can he trust you with big things? Ask your neighbor, can he trust you with small things? Meaning, if he's giving you an instruction, are you doing it well? Are you doing it to the best of your ability? Are you exceeding his expectations? Let's look at Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if anything is excellent, what does it say? If anything is praiseworthy, what comes out of your mouth? Is it excellent? This is one God has been working on me. Ndidi, what comes out of your mouth? Is it praiseworthy? Are you consistent with your heart, your head, and your mouth? Your thought life, is it excellent? What do you spend your time on? Is it on excellent things? Are you someone who's developing expertise in your area so you're known as the world's best in that area? Are you excellent in your calling? Ask your neighbor, are you excellent? Are you excellent? Titus 2:7, show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in all your teaching, show integrity. You know, integrity is a challenge in our country. It's a challenge, and I want to dwell on it for a second. Because when people are being interviewed for jobs and they tell us they are Christians, what do you say? Tell me something I don't know. I tell people, don't tell me you're a Christian. Show me. You know, St. Francis of Assisi says there's no use going anywhere to preach unless your walking is your preaching. Unless your life is your... Is it easy? All of us have to repent on a daily basis to get better. Sometimes I actually come and apologize to my house help. I'm sorry for shouting. It takes a lot of humility, but I'm sorry. Why? Why should I apologize to somebody I employ? Because she's somebody of worth. She's God's child. And it's taught me that, gosh, if I'm honoring God, I have to be excellent in all things. But that leads me to the point. There are some of us who cannot find anybody to go and send to get donkeys and colts for us because nobody will go. Nobody will go for us. You know, for every vision you have, you need somebody who will go with you. Do you understand? A priest and king is nobody without followers. Do you have followers? Ask your neighbor, do you have followers? You know, people can't follow you unless they trust you. And how do you build trust with them? You treat them with respect and dignity. You treat them what? With respect and dignity. It doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter who you are. You're nobody if you can't treat others with respect and dignity. And as you rise, if people won't follow you, that's a sign. Do you understand? There are people who are rising. Nobody's following them. They are appointed to a position. They call their former staff. Their staff say, I'm not coming. Have you heard that before? Why won't they come? You want me to come and be your Jackie again? As you rise, make other people rise with you. Make other people rise with you. I recently stepped down from my role as chair of Sahel Consulting, and I posted on Instagram about it because I felt it's important for people to know that you can build a company in Nigeria and other people can take it to the next level. And you can trust them with your vision. Why? Because you have tested them and they have proven themselves worthy. But you have also proven yourself worthy. Because they will not build your company unless they believe that you're going to share the resources with them. You're going to give them credit. You're going to elevate them. You know what gives me the greatest joy is to be on a plane somewhere and there are people, somebody says to me, hi, Ndidi. Oh, Leap Africa. Oh, you're on the same plane. Where are you going? Oh, Switzerland. Oh, Ace Foods. Where are you going? France. To God be the glory. There are staff going on. Some of them might even be in a better class than me. And I'm so proud. Do you know why? Because God has elevated them. Because they have bought into the vision, they've been obedient, they've been excellent. My brothers and sisters, who is following you? Ask your neighbor, who is following you? You can't be a priest and king if you're the only person who has to shine. You cannot be the only one shining. Elevate people, give them platforms to shine. And guess what? As they shine, God will continue to bless you. It doesn't take anything away from you to let other people shine. It doesn't. It doesn't. And finally, W, worship. Worship. What did they do? He got on the donkey. They put their cloaks on him, their integrity and excellence, and they worshiped. Hosanna in the highest. In this church, you have learned that your worship is what? Your weapon. Your worship is your weapon. Because as you rise as a priest and king, guess what? The arrows will come. Will it be easy? No. Lots of arrows to take you down. If they try you and they can't get you, they'll try your children. If they try your children, they can't get your children to try your husband. If they can't get your husband, they'll try every which way, arrows. So your worship is your weapon. And for kings and priests, we can't walk this journey alone. We need to worship with others. God has blessed me with serious prayer partners, serious accountability partners, sisters who hold me up. You need that. You need brothers who hold me up, who hold you up. My daughter laughs that, Mommy, you have a prayer meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm praying for people, they're praying for me. Yesterday, a friend called me. She said, Ndidi, arrows, we need to pray for you. Who are the other people we can call? 2 other people. We prayed. She said, it's been lifted. How many of you have people like that who are walking this journey as kings and priests with you, who have discernment for what God needs to do in your life and who you know are covering you? Ask your neighbor, do you have accountability partners? Do you have prayer partners? There's nothing that takes it away from you. Some people are shaking their heads, some people are smiling. If you don't have, please appoint them today. Appoint them today. Say, I need you. Because where I'm going, I need fortification. I need encouragement. I need worshipers. I need prayer warriors to hold me up. Where God is taking you, you need to be held up. You know, you need to be held up. Those who have gone into government, like Oke and Alama and Omobala Johnson, had a team of intercessors. They came in, they came out with their integrity intact. They had what? A team of intercessors. There's nowhere God is sending you that you don't need that intercessor. So your worship is your weapon. You're surrounding yourself with worshipers, you're holding up to the worshipers, and you're going to stand your ground. Now, you really have to continue to invest in yourself. Listen, children of God, where God is calling us as priests and kings, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. And where it is tough, like it is tough in Nigeria today, that's when the kings and priests have to rise. And guess what? There's room for you. Because when the pressure is on, they're looking for people who have solutions. What is your solution? What is your solution? What solution do you have? What solution do you have? What solution do you have? As I round up, I just want to ask a few questions and then we'll pray. So my questions are, what is your view? What do you see? What is your vision as a king and priest? What is your vision? What has God laid in your heart? What problem has He called you to solve for His people? What are you uniquely endowed by God to achieve? The second question, what instruction have you received? Are you obeying that instruction? Who is walking on this journey with you? How loyal are they? Number 3, excellence. How are you living and leading with excellence? What are they saying about you? What are they saying about your kingship and your priesthood? When you're not in the room, what are they saying about you? Are you listening to what they say about you? You know, when I have feedback sessions with my team, in addition to giving them feedback, I ask them for feedback. Can we give upward feedback? Can we receive the feedback as a gift? When you go home today, ask your children how you can be a better father, because you're a king in your home. Women, mothers, ask your children how you can be a better mother, right? Ask your team members and your staff how you can be a better boss or how you can be a better colleague. It's humbling. It's humbling. When I first did this at Faith Foundation, I had to do an anonymous thing. This was 23 years ago. They were anonymous feedback. I had to leave the room to cry. After I cried, I wiped my tears and came back. But guess what? I was 25 years old, and I've gotten better every year with being a boss because I have received the feedback. Has it been easy to receive? Are there impurities that God has had to take out? Obviously. And that's why we're work in progress. Has anybody arrived in excellence? Has anybody arrived? Is anybody like Jesus? We want to look like Jesus. We want to make God proud, but it's a journey. And the first thing is to be honest that you're on that journey. And finally, how is your worship life? And who are you worshiping? And this is important. I want to just dwell on this as I round up. Who are you worshiping? We have a tendency in Nigeria to worship human beings. To worship people because of who they are, how they dress, what they wear, what cars they have. People are always laughing at me. You drove yourself to church. Obviously. You went to the market. I'm in food and agriculture. That's my research. You don't want me to go to understand what is happening? Where do you get to where you think that there's a level? Or I'll get a text message, Ndidi, why are you flying economy class? Is there anything wrong? Tell your neighbor, kings and priests stay in their lane. You're not living anybody else's life. And I want to say that because the pressure to be somebody you're not is serious. Is it serious? And that's why people owe school fees so they can travel business class. Misplaced priorities. Tell your neighbor, do not have misplaced priorities. Because I know how many school fees I can pay with that business class ticket. I will fly economy. Honestly, how many Bethesda school fees I can pay? My brothers and sisters, don't worry about anybody else's journey. Your journey as a priest and king is yours alone. And the only person you have to answer to is God. So stay in your lane. Resist the pressure. Worship only God. If God is proud of you, that's all that matters. If God elevates you, that's all that matters. So as we round up, I think God is looking for men and women who He can position as kings and priests. He is. There is a lack of leadership everywhere. There's a lack of leadership, and the world is groaning. But you have to be ready. He can't use you unless you're ready. You have to be excellent. You have to have integrity. You have to be humble and grounded. I looked up and I said, why did Jesus choose a donkey? What was the symbolism of a donkey? He could have risen a horse. And I saw online, donkey symbolizes humility. So as God raises you up to be His king and His priest, stay humble. Stay grounded, because He can use anybody else. The day you start thinking it's about you, He'll say, Ndidi, I don't need you anymore. Let me find somebody else who is humble. I don't need you. I can use anybody. I will only use a humble and contrite spirit, somebody who is grounded. So my brothers and sisters, stay humble, stay grounded, stay visionary, and let God use you. What do you see? What is your view? Let's say view together. Vision, instruction, excellence, and worship. May God bless you all.